I suckered you into the... Okay, so if I suckered you into watching my video with the title, which is building the Avia Trix MTM speakers from Parts Plus, well, this is the finished result. I'm not super crazy about them, and most of my issue is actually with the size of the cabinets. It's the size of the cabinets. Now, they do look cool. They sound fine. I have no issue with the way they sound. The cabinets are a little bit bigger than I wanted them to be. That's my fault. I discuss all that throughout the video. It took me a week to build the cabinets. I shot videos of pretty much the whole process. I skipped some of it, and somehow or another I lost my unboxing video. Oh well, you all know how much people love unboxing videos. So here we are. Now, what was the total cost on these? About between $600 and $700. The kit itself, the two drivers, the tweeter, the components for the crossover and the binding posts, and the other accoutrement that I ordered from Parts Plus came to about $340. The lumber, the cherry lumber, was $170 or $180 for the lumber that I used. I went to my local hardwood supplier and purchased raw lumber, milled it down to what I wanted to use it, you know, the dimensions that I wanted. The MDF and like my trip to depot was like another $75 for glue and the MDF and what have you. The Rubio Monocoat was $50, but I'm going to use that on a bunch of other projects. I had to buy, and I mentioned this in the video, I had to buy some hardware, some connectors and some wiring, which it's like cooking a gourmet meal at home, right? I only needed 12 screws, I had to buy 100. So that's kind of, you know, that's part of it too. Management likes them, and they're going to stay. I was originally thinking about actually scrapping the entire project about 3/4 of the way through and rebuilding the cabinets. I've decided against that. I'm going to leave them. We'll see how it goes. So please like and subscribe. Watch the rest of the videos if you are so inclined to listen to me babbling like an idiot for a week on and off. Well, yeah, a week on and off. I figure I have about 30 plus hours in these cabinets from the time that I decided that I wanted to do the project till this morning, which is almost exactly 1 week later. I do a lot of fiddling and a lot of fitting and things that probably shouldn't take nearly as long as they did. I built a bunch of templates for certain things. So there you go. Enjoy the rest of the video. I forgot to mention, they didn't, they're not broke in yet. My favorite thing to break in speakers with is crappy 80s dance music, because it's like way overproduced and it has this like incredible dynamic range. But from what I've listened to so far, they sound good. My concerns with them being too bassy were misplaced. They sound fine to me. I'm partially deaf, so the vast majority of the music I don't even get a chance to enjoy. Tiki gets to enjoy it, my dog, but I can't hear it. Hey, welcome back to Uncle Fezzi's Mad Lab. What's Uncle Fezzi up to now? And why hasn't he put a video up in 8 months? Well, I haven't put a video up in 8 months because I've been crazy busy between my glass blowing studio. I did a ton of work here around the house. I installed 3 patios, I rebuilt my bathroom, and the number one thing that I got finished this summer was my addition on my house. It's been 2 years from the time they broke ground to the finished product. And we are here in the finished product. Almost finished. When I designed this room, I never took into consideration that this was going to be my primary living space. And I never took into consideration of building a stereo into the room. Perfect opportunity, right? Framing's open, you can run all the wires, you can hide all the speakers, whatever. I was going to put a sound bar up here, but quite frankly, I'm not impressed with the sound of sound bars. I like crappy action movies. I like to be immersed in the film, and you can't get that with a sound bar. I don't care whose. So I went to a company called In-Wall Speakers, and I purchased their Dolby 7.1 surround sound, or I bought their Dolby surround sound system. And it sounds awesome. It really does. But it was missing something. And what was it missing? Well, it was missing the A-channel speakers. And it never even occurred to me until after everything was done, everybody left, and I watched my first crappy action film, and I'm like, something doesn't sound right. Well, what didn't sound right is there was no A speakers. So I ran down into my bedroom suite, and I grabbed these bookshelf speakers out of my stereo in the basement, which is actually a 5.1 surround sound system. These are Pulp TSI 200s. They're cheap, and they don't make them anymore. They sound great, but as you can see here, and in one of my other videos, I made these stands to put them on, to raise them up, to get the sound to come in my particular direction so I could angle them just the way I wanted to. I did a bunch of research looking around the interwebs for a speaker system for 2 speakers that were made out of cherry, because I actually made all this trim, all the doors, everything here is made out of cherry, and I wanted cherry speakers, and I couldn't find anything that was in the shape that I wanted, in the price range that I wanted. I absolutely could have had these speakers made. They would have been about $2,000 a piece. Yeah, that ain't gonna happen. So I went to the internet and I asked a couple friends, and they pointed me towards a company called Parts Express. I don't get paid by Parts Express, trust me. And I ordered the Avia Trix MTM speaker kit from them. Now this kit comes in 3 different ways. It comes as the kit, the components, so you get 4 5.5-inch woofers, 2 tweeters, and all the components to build the crossovers. Or you can get a already completed speaker cabinet from them, and you finish it, and you put the speaker, you put the crossover together, you put the speakers together, you're done. And then they have a flat pack kit, which is all of the components, you glue it together, you screw it together, you then have your speaker, you can finish it however you want. They also have 3 different speaker designs. They have a sealed design, which is the design that I am building. A ported design, and a mass-loaded transmission design. Now, the sealed design is the reason I went with the sealed design, because I am building the speakers to fit this space specifically, and a port on the back won't work because it's up against the wall. A port on the front is redundant because I have, I don't need it. I have a bass, I have 2 subwoofers in here. I've got 400 watts of subwoofer in here that literally will rattle the teeth out of your head. I actually have to turn it down depending on what I'm watching, because it is just brutally, it's awesome, I love it. And the mass-loaded transmission design I don't need either, because of the bass that I already have. So I'm going with the sealed unit. Now, what's the rest of this video? Why am I even bothering with this? Well, in the spirit of Leo and the Tally Ho project, I thought it would be interesting to show pretty much the process. And just like Leo and all of his crew, I'm building templates first before I build anything. So what I'm going to end up doing here is I'm probably going to end up building at least 3, if not 4 speakers to get 2. My first step is to use this craft paper here, and I'm building a base plate template that I can use for the base of the speakers, the general shape of the speakers, the top and the bottom of the speakers. You always want to make your very, very first templates, and you always should make templates out of paper. And then go, in my case, I'm going to 3/4 inch MDF because I'm daring and quite frankly, I bought a sheet of 3/4 inch MDF. I could have done it at a 1/4 inch. If I just wanted to make templates, I could just made it at a 1/4 inch. I think the way I'm going to build these, and there's more than think to it, I'm pretty sure this is the way I'm going to do this, is I'm going to build the speakers out of MDF, and then I'm going to run down to my local hardwood supplier and purchase rough cherry, which is rough cherry lumber, and I'm going to mill it down to probably 3/4 of an inch. It comes 5/4. I'm going to mill it down to 3/4 of an inch. Then I'm going to use that as a veneer over top of the MDF. So the speakers themselves, the outside of the speaker, or the speaker enclosures themselves, are going to be incredibly heavy. I want that. They're also going to be dimensionally stable. One of the things about using straight hardwood, which is what I was going to do originally, is it's very susceptible to expansion and contraction due to weather. So I'm hoping that if I veneer the cherry over the MDF, I'll be able to control that expansion and contraction and keep it two things: heavy, no vibration, and dimensionally stable. I hope. I may vary that. I haven't totally decided yet. We'll see. We're going to find out, because that's the way I'm going to do it. All right, so I've already made a template here. I've made one template, and I've already decided that I don't like it. So I'm going to remake this template. Actually, I'm not going to remake the template. I'm just going to change this angle here. So I'm going to use this one. This is my first template. I'm going to change, because it's going to be oriented like this against the wall, where my favorite ass plopping spot is right where the camera is. So I need to actually turn this angle in a little bit this way, wink, so it angles more towards me a little. The next part of this, I'm not going to bore you all with how I cut MDF, unless something interesting comes up, like when I cut the holes and when I veneer it together. So this is part 1 of the video, and we'll get into part 2 later. Okay, here I am back. I butchered up some of that MDF, and I made my first real hard template, which is actually, it looks perfect. It fits exactly where I want it to, and I'm going to run with it. Mainly just because, why not? You know, it's I can offset the speakers when I get the actual boxes built. I'm going to show how I'm going to actually offset the speakers a little bit, just to kind of give it a little visual, I think. The other thing I did do is I bought cloth to put over them so I could put screens over them. But these things are going to be pretty high. I'm actually going to move the camera here. The speakers are going to be mirrored on either side. So these are going to fit, actually they'll fit really nice in this corner. They are going to overlap the door frame just a tad, which I'm okay with. That's why I'm building them out of cherry. Now the other thing with these speakers is they cannot go any higher than this window. I absolutely do not want them too much higher than the window. The window sill is 28 inches, so taking into consideration the floor spikes which I ordered and the thickness of the veneer, I think I'm going to make them 24 and a half inches high plus 3/4, which would make them so 27 is the max. So if I make them 24 and a half, add 1.5 inches, that'll bring them up to 26 and a half, and that'll bring them in just below the bottom of the window, which is what I want. I can adjust them a little bit at the bottom if I have to put a little shim underneath of them. I'd like them to be flush with this windowsill. It's easier to make them shorter and raise them up a little bit than it is to try to cut something off the bottom. And they look like they're going to fit. They're going to fit perfectly. The doors are still going to open a minimum of 90 degrees. They won't, minimum of 90 degrees, they'll open more. And this speaker is pointed directly at my wife. So This is actually working out great. So let's build the rest of the box. I knew I said I wasn't going to bore you with cutting, and I'm not, but I think it's actually kind of important to show the setup here. So I did tweak my design a little to make it so that I could do the vast majority of the angle cuts that I need to on my 12-inch miter saw here. So I ripped all these down to 12 inches wide by 16 inches long, and so that I ripped them all 12 inches wide, and then I cut them into 16-inch lengths. I ripped them on the saw stop, and then I'm rigging them up on where I'm jigging them, for the sake of argument, on the radial arm saw. Basically, this is a radial arm saw. To ensure that I get them pretty close, I'm going to do it this way. You know, that's about as close as I'm ever going to get them. The other thing is you have to remember these are the base carcass. They're going to be veneered. I got sketchy instantly. I'm not too crazy about this setup, but it's a lot easier for me. It's a lot easier for me to rig these or to jig these this way. Why is that like that? Why is that funny? Oh, there we go. Now it's lined up. We're lined up now. No, we're not lined up. Why is that crooked? So I had run all these through the table saw. That's very interesting. I must have moved it or something, because that's not straight now. Well, let's put it this way. Before I complete this, I'm gonna square all these back up, because that's like way off. So basically what I did was I changed the angle so it was a repeatable angle that I could do within the parameters of my saw relatively easily. So I chose 35 degrees as the cut on the front instead of like 34, and it was like 34 and change. So I changed it a little bit. So it was 35 degrees on this. That's bothersome. Why is that like that? These should line up perfectly. And it's not. Something's not square. Oh, gotta get a square out. I'm not gonna lie, I thought these were all square. Apparently I didn't check them for square. That's square. That's square. Square. Pretty fucking close to square. It would be ironic if the very first cut that I made was out of square, and it is. Now, what's not square? We're going to square them all back up, because I fucked up. So, it's a good thing I caught this right off the bat. Somehow or another, I magically grabbed the right piece that was out of square when I cut this. So this is the one that was out of square. I checked them all. I ran them all back through the table saw, and I came to the realization that this particular piece was cut out of square. It's a template, so into the garbage it goes. I'll use it for testing the dado that I have to cut later. I ended up running all the pieces back through the table saw, and then to square them back up and to make sure they're all exactly the right size. what was happening, or what happened, and I just noticed it. It was the first time I'd actually ever noticed it. The blade was actually deflecting. I have a real thin kerf glue up blade in there. I didn't bother changing it out. I actually usually run a little bit thicker blade, but that's a thin kerf blade. And what it did was, as I was running these through the saw to make sure they were all about the same size, I was literally just taking off less than a blade width, and what was happening is, as I was pushing the wood through the saw, the blade was deflecting. So, oopsie poopsie. All right, so now back to where I was making this cut. Now, ironically enough, I am going to use the same. Going to use this one as my template, but only to get a rough idea of where I have to saw them at. I'm going to set a stop up on this side of the blade to make sure that they get cut all exactly the same. I'm not great at cutting angles. This is actually a little bit of a stretch for me, design-wise. It's so funny, I keep trying to square it up knowing it's not square. So I'm going to just put a pencil line in here. These don't need to be, they don't need to be precisely, they don't need to be precisely accurate. To any particular, they don't need to be precisely accurate to any particular blueprint, but what they do need to be is all the same. So that's what I got to keep in mind. Check this as a test. So like I said, I'm not going to lose a whole lot of sleep if they're all wrong according to my whatever design it is that I used, but I definitely want them to all be consistent. So if they're all consistently 5 and 17/30 seconds or whatever weird size it actually is, that's fine. Make sure your stop is stop's right. But they all want to be the same. They all want to be the same, and that's what I'm going for here. So that's tight up against here, because this is kind of a sketchy cut. I'm off the table. I should probably do this on the table saw, and eventually I'm going to have to jig it on the table saw to cut the dados. All right, so the tops and the bottoms are all cut. The next step is I'm going to rip the material for the sides. Okay, so I cut all my pieces. I actually had a bit of a brain fart there. I thought I didn't have enough, but the truth of the matter is I did. We're not going to talk about that faux pas that I had. So what I did was I actually changed my design halfway through. I was originally not going to cut rabbits in the bases. I was going to cut the rabbits, or the bases / tops. I was going to cut the rabbits on the side pieces, and I thought, you know what an incredible waste of time that was. So theoretically, all the pieces that I cut are going to have to be cut again. Now, why cut once when why do something once when you could do it twice? So basically what I did was I cut a rabbit all the way around the base. I set up my dado stack. My dado stack is set up for a little bit over ½ an inch. This dado stack does not like to run 3/4 of an inch through this saw. Truth be told, if I had the choice to do this entire project over again, there's two things I would have done. One is to purchase the actual saw stop outfeed table. The other is I would have went with the 3 horsepower saw, because when you're cutting heavy dados, the saw will choke. This is the 1 3/4 horsepower 110 volt saw. So there's my dado stack. Now because I've known to make mistakes, I marked my blanks left and right, inside, bottom, and top. So this is my right side blank. bottom, this is my right side blank top. So the game plan here is to take all these pieces, so this is basically the wall side. These two are wall sides. You're gonna see these, and then this is the face, the front face. So that one's gonna go there. This one's gonna go here, and now this one is going to be too long. So this one is gonna have to be trimmed a little bit because we're over. I didn't take into consideration, this is gonna have to get 3/4 of an inch trimmed off of it. Not a big deal. I'm butt joining this together for a lot of reasons. One is I'm actually going to use glue and mechanical fasteners to hold the MDF together. Remember, these are going to get clad or veneered with cherry, pretty thick cherry too, so I have plenty of room. And the joinery for that is just going to be 45s, so you don't see any end grain. I'm actually pretty good at doing that. And the bottom is not going to be cherry. The base on this is just going to stay MDF. If I have some extra MDF, what I might do is glue a couple pieces in here to give it a little bit more oomph, but that's the way it is. So, let's see. This is a 6-inch, so that one's going to go there, like that. This one needs to be trimmed. This one needs to be cut at an angle, and I knew that when I did this, I was going to have to cut that. But I'm not real good at working off of blueprints. I work much better off the seat of my pants, especially for doing stuff where I don't need to follow blueprints. So there's your basic speaker setup. And then this is going to be the face. I haven't cut the face yet because I want that's the most important piece, and that's the one that's going to be the funkiest of the angles. So that's the last one that's going to get cut, and then get that, and that'll get fit in. These are all going to be just straight up butt jointed together with glue and some staples. It'll be more than enough. MDF likes to be glued. I might do screws. I do have to run down to I might use screws, I might use staples. I may actually use screws because I have some really nice screws that really like to be used in MDF. Drywall screws. And I got a shit ton of drywall screws, so I may actually use drywall screws because, again, remember, this is all going to get covered with veneer. And the tighter this box is built, the less chance that this thing is going to vibrate. I cannot have these things vibrating. The other thing I was thinking about doing is going to Home Depot and getting some, they make like an insulating wrap that you can put on stuff that's sticky on one side. I was thinking about maybe putting that in here because these are going to get stuffed with foam too. I actually polyfill. So let's get cutting some rabbits. I'm liking this. I'm really liking this design here. I should note that I actually did mark all the pieces too. As I go further in the project, I'll mark more and more stuff. So right now I just have them marked, 5 inches, 6 inches, 12 inches, front, back. But now that I'm getting into the actual assembly of these, I'm getting closer and closer and closer to having to actually mark each individual piece as I go along. Tops, bottoms, insides, outsides, lefts and rights, because these speakers are left and right speakers. So I'm just going to cut one dado. You'll get the idea of how I've been doing this. So yeah, we'll do it this way. Alright, so there's my rabbit.